It may be a test. Another layer in the lesson here, when I say it, it'll make sense, but before you may not catch it, it's not just do something. Exercise your will. Do it your way. Exercise your will. Jesus started his ministry with prayer, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Thy will. And he ended his ministry in the Garden of Gethsemane with prayer. Not my will, thy will. Here he's being challenged. Dump the thy will stuff, kid. Let your will be done. And throughout John, like I said, Jesus constantly, I only do those things. The Son can do nothing of myself, which is really what the next one is. Do something. Exercise your will. The third thing, satisfy yourself and desire. Come on, man, you're hungry. Nobody can blame you for that. You can do it. You can turn the stones into bread and feed yourself. You can do it. That doesn't mean you should do it. But you're hungry. Yeah, Father knows I'm hungry. And when he feeds me, I'll eat. Whatever provision he gives me, I'll enjoy and I'll be thankful for. Satisfy yourself. Be like the adversary, Satan. This is one of the few places where Jesus, by the time this thing is over, says to him, the same thing he says in Matthew 16 when he's with Peter, get thee behind me, Satan. These are the same exact words here in Greek. Get thee behind me by the time this thing is over. His name's Satan. In the Old Testament, that translates into adversary. In the New Testament, it translates into accuser.
Sounds like a demotion.
You think in terms of what's happening here in the wilderness, what's it have to do with accusation? It doesn't necessarily sound like there's any accusing going on, but there's constantly accusing going on. There's accusing the Father of giving the Son a raw deal. And I'm telling you, when that thought enters our mind and our hearts, that is not generated from within. That is a thought, I'm letting you know now, that's generated from without by an enemy who is an accuser. He'll accuse God himself. I brought something out that I don't think I've shown you guys before. You know that we were in England for many years, in a small town called Swanage. We weren't there a very long time. Somebody gave me this. Yes, it is a poster dated 1693 from Swanage. Well, they posted this up throughout the community. The church was in a much different condition and position. It says, to the people of this hamlet, cast out all witches and devils that have lately annoyed these parts, with several grievous molestations and curiosities. And then there's a picture of like a little impish, devilish kind of. But it ends with this. Some counsels directing a due improvement of the terrible things lately occurring in this neighborhood by the unusual and amazing range of evil spirits, prevent the wrongs which those evil angels may intend against all sorts of people among us, especially in accusation of the innocent. This is a poster that was posted because they recognized something was happening in their community. People were developing not just a rotten attitude, there were these false accusations being made against innocent people. We think we're so clued up on spiritual warfare and all this kind of stuff. We don't even blink when people talk like this. In fact, sometimes if we're not careful, we can engage ourselves in inappropriate conversation. These guys were saying, this ain't right. People of God don't do this. This is not godly conduct, godly behavior. This is not of the Holy Spirit. This is of another spirit. It's called an evil spirit. It's accusations and stuff going against innocent people that's destructive. It separates us. It's not good, and we need to put an end to it. They weren't necessarily calling for burning witches at the stake. What they were talking about was cleansing everybody's hearts and lives from the influence of these evil spirits that, if they were not addressed, would become like witches and devils. Remember, Judas is called a devil in John 6. He's literally called a devil. Well, how could he? He's not the devil. And Jesus is saying, no, he's a devil. A real strong warning against the kind of message that the enemy leaves us with. See, the bottom line, it is a trust issue. The first temptation definitely is a trust issue. If you've ever not been able to pay a bill, didn't have food, didn't have gas, whatever it is, something that you don't have, and you've done all that you know you're supposed to do, and somebody suggests that you do something other than what God would have you to do, it really boils down to trust. There's a real trust issue going on here. Trust and assurance go hand in hand. Assurance is either based on satisfaction, how satisfied I am, or being a son. That's what assurance is actually about. My assurance is the fact that I'm a son. And like Paul says, in whatever state I find myself, I'm content. Whether I'm hungry, remember when he says that? Whether I'm hungry, whether I'm full, whether I have little, and none of that, I'm content. Because I'm walking in a place as a son, with and in my Father. I can't do anything without him anyway. And whatever's happening in my life, he's the one that's doing it. It's a trust issue. And Jesus meets this temptation, this trust issue, by quoting Deuteronomy chapter 8, verse 3. It's the verse that he just quoted to the enemy. And that verse is a verse that points to Exodus 16. It's the one where they're in the wilderness and they're complaining because they've got nothing to eat.
You knew the same situation was occurring here.
Exactly. Because that's what happens to sons in the wilderness. Jesus is clued up. He's looking at the adversary, the accuser, and it's like, we've been there before. The firstborn son, Israel, didn't do so hot in the wilderness. I know the story. They complained and they moaned. And here the enemy is talking to the bread of life, who's in the wilderness. The issue is bread once again. I want to encourage you in this. There is more than enough of the Spirit of God in each and every one of us to sustain us in any situation. You got to picture the irony and foolishness of this. You're talking to the bread of life about making bread to sustain himself. Think about it. There's more inside of me to sustain me for another 40 days in the wilderness. Because I am complete and perfected in my Father. And my Father is in me. I'm all set, thank you very much. He quotes Deuteronomy 8, man does not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceeds from the mouth of God. And he's already given me his word. This is my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased. He's given me his word. See, Israel complained in the wilderness about the food situation. Jesus is not moaning and complaining. That presents me with an issue, or with a situation. This is Steve now. When I'm moaning and complaining, which son am I acting like, and why? I'm the only one that can answer that question. Although probably everybody in here can answer it too. We know. I know the answer to that one. I know. Because sons don't moan. They don't complain. They trust God. Their assurance is in their sonship. Complaining is a waste of time. And it upsets God. It says in Exodus 16, God was getting upset with them because they were moaning and complaining at Moses and Aaron and him. And it's funny, the story is great. Moses and Aaron are like, oh, what are we going to do about it? We're just doing what God told us. We led you out here. We're following we're doing what we're supposed to do here. We're doing the stuff kind of thing. What am I supposed to do? Make bread drop out of the sky? And God's like, no, I can do that though, because I'm your Father, and that's what I'm going to do. Some of you know that, manna actually means, what is it? That's what manna actually means. It's the Hebrew word for, what is it? It's not even so much, where did it come from? What is it? It's manna provided by your Father. And the most
figured out what it actually is.
it's they never say exactly what it is. It's described in a number of different ways. Tastes like honey and coriander and all this. It's thin like a wafer. It comes in. It's all different stuff. But what they're trying to work out is, what is it?
The bread of life.
And Jesus says that in John 6, doesn't he? See, the thing is, we've got these things, turn the stones into bread. And our Father's like, how about if I do something so flipping unusual, you won't even know what it is, and it'll be great. And actually, it'll sustain you for 40 years. God told them, gather it daily. Don't gather 2 days so you don't have to go out on Wednesday and try to do 2 days work on Tuesday. Some of them try it. On Wednesday morning, it's gone bad. You can't eat it the second day. You got to gather it daily. Give us this day our daily bread, 1 day at a time. But you can't gather it on the Sabbath. Sabbath is the last day of the week. So on the 6th day of the week, you gather 2 days worth. So you have enough for the Sabbath. And it's like, now wait a minute. So this manna, if I gather it on Tuesday, it's rotten on Wednesday. If I gather it on Friday, it's still good on Saturday. Correct. What? And that's exactly what happens. As long as they gather the 2 days worth, they got enough for the next day, and it's just as good the second day as it is the first. And there's very deeper implications there, which we won't go into tonight. It's not the point. The point is that Jesus prays in the beginning of his ministry, give us this day our daily bread. And there's something very important behind all of this. He could turn the stones to bread and eat, but the next day he's going to be hungry again. So he's going to have to turn the stone to bread again. And the third day, he'll have to turn the stone to bread again and again and again. You see, the thing about turning stones to bread is tomorrow you'll need more. And every time you turn the stones to bread, you're changing the bread, but you're changing yourself. And you're walking further and further away from being Son of God. Because the Son of God doesn't do that. So every time you do it, you can do it. You can. I can do that. But you're going to have to keep doing it and keep doing it and keep doing it. And every time you do it, you're wandering further and further and further away from the trust and assurance and what really being a son is about. Foundational sonship, trusting the Father. All of you have friends and family that talk with you about a variety of situations and circumstances that they're in. And we always want to tell them to do something that is going to be helpful. It's kind of like our human nature that do something. Is God in it? Beats me. But do something. And I just want to encourage you that our God is a God who can be trusted. He's faithful and true. He's got things in store that we can't even begin to imagine. The what is it's. He didn't just give him the manna in the morning. Remember, he gave him quail at night, gave him meat at night, able to do exceedingly abundantly, but far above all that we can ask or think. The first temptation, change your circumstances. You can do it. In fact, you should do it. Even throw, in the name of Jesus, throw that in there. Jesus prays, the Son prays, and realizes everything that he needs, and he's hungry. Everything his needs, his Father will supply. Whatever needs to be done, his Father will do it.